All right, how about now? Awesome. Welcome, everybody. So, ooh, I've got to stop doing that. I do that a lot. I think this room is a little bit dark, and I know that it's after 2 p.m. I would understand if you fall asleep. Please try not to. I've traveled a very long way to be here. So hopefully you hear us out, and yeah, hopefully you learn something new from us today. So just first, just a bit of introduction. So that's us and our loved ones up there, myself and John. We are currently working at ServiceNow. So I'm just intrigued by the size of the crowd, actually. John and I were just discussing, we're like, why are people here to listen to us? So how many people are here or have heard of ServiceNow, or you're here because you're a customer of ServiceNow? Yay, I'm assuming you like us. Thank you very much for being our customers. And I guess, you know, lovely HR faces I'm looking at. Super excited to be talking to HR in, you know, a forum like this, where data is, you know, at the center of the conversation. So, but yeah, so just, you know, taking us back to the introduction of myself and John. My name is Nina. I'm from Sydney, Australia. And I, before ServiceNow, I've worked at GE and a number of other companies. I have a background in organizational psychology. So I've always been kind of interested in people, but more from an analytical perspective. So I never stop wondering why and how people behave the way they do. So it's kind of, it's just in me. So doing this is really my passion. And I really do get up for data. And a career in analytics is really my dream. And yeah, so aside from that, I love cleaning. I'm sorry to say, I really do. There's something about a clean environment that really clears my head. So I constantly clear my head by cleaning. So aside from that, that's my brother's Corgi. He's more the family dog now. He's super cute, but like definitely a little rascal. I love him to death. And yeah, and John and I share a love for podcasts. And a few of my podcasts are, of course, about data and analytics. So John, over to you.
I'm John. I love puppies, podcasts, and politics, probably in that order. I'm not a data person. No, I'm just kidding, I am. And before ServiceNow, I was at Uber and the people analytics team there, so it's been about 3.5 years of trying to explain data to HR professionals, which you all love. And then before that, I was in healthcare consulting, and obviously I got a degree in civil engineering, because that makes sense.
So what are we here to talk to you about? And I realized as I came into the room that this title is not exactly what you saw at the beginning, but hopefully it's close enough. So we're talking to you today about really, you know, from our perspective, we're coming to you not as your Tableau Jedi or your Zen Masters or, you know, a super, you know, advanced Tableau user. We're coming to you today as your peers. And what I'm really hoping is we can share a few lessons, a few very practical tips that you can take back to your organization and apply tomorrow. And yeah, that's it. Like, we're going to keep the presentation we've got very practical examples to share with you and very real tips. Not put it all in, you know, in a way that you need, you know, a background in graphics design to understand or any jargon or anything like that. So keeping it real and also setting the bar very low. So.
Yeah. And one other note, if you're here to learn about ServiceNow metrics from the platform, this is not the place to be, so you can leave. But yeah, this is HR and data.
Well, before that, actually, I think we should explain what ServiceNow is for the people who haven't not heard of ServiceNow. So we're a tech company based in Santa Clara. We are today 7,500 employees globally. And what we do is enterprise workflow management platforms. So you think of your ticket systems, you know, for your IT, for your HR, finance, and so on. So that's kind of what we do. So, but we're here to talk about HR and HR data. So, you know, we all, being here, I assume that we all love data. And I really do, you know that about me already. But we work with HR people. I think there are a few traits about HR people that we all can agree on, and I'm hoping that you would agree with me, otherwise it's going to be an awkward conversation. So HR people are not data people. Is that true? We didn't get into HR to do numbers. It's just not what it's about. We love people. We're about fun and, you know, about people. What else? We can find data very provocative. Like, think about the last conversation that you've had with a HR business partner or a HR leader, and you get challenges because they tell you, you know, my leader doesn't agree with these numbers, or I don't trust this data, or it's just too high. It just can't be right. What else? I just briefly covered that. Not trusting of data. We do bear the brunt of bad data quality. You guys know this. If you know, we take whatever comes out of our HRIS and we can report on the data that's in there. And at that point, that's when people realize that garbage in, garbage out, and you get to you hear all about it. And you know, the responsibility for bad data is vague, and it's kind of shared amongst anybody who has access to Oracle or Workday, whatever the system that you're using. And you know, as reporters, as analysts and people reporting out to the organization, we have to take responsibility for our numbers, but clearly, you know, sometimes it's out of our hands. And how many times have you heard these 10 people that have quit? Who are they? What are their names? Give me names. Give me a list. Give me lists. Seriously, every single day. So, and not tech savvy. I mean, right, like Tableau was a transition, yes? Transitioning away from the traditional Excel, you know, that if you were like us, definitely that would have been a challenge for you. What else have I missed, John?
That's it, let's jump in.
Yeah, so really, I mean, you know, with these kind of, you know, for me, kind of just observed characteristics of HR as a group, I really don't mean to knock HR. It's more HR thinks about, I'd say HR questions that can be answered with data are quite conceptual, highly conceptual. In fact, if you think about it, it's, you know, what's in the mind of a HR business partner or HR leader. They're thinking about, how do I grow the company? How do I know that I'm hiring the right people? How do I retain my people, my best people? All those things are so vague and need, you know, to be defined clearly, to have metrics around them. You know, they're not as more clearly defined as some of you more, you know, some of our peers, for example, in finance. Some of the questions that they can answer, or from our sales team, you know, how do we increase our sales revenue by 50%? They're much more, you know, they lend themselves to being answered by data and by numbers and by metrics much more easily than the questions that we ask ourselves and that we want answers for. So I guess my point is that it's hard to do data in HR. You know, if you experience what I experienced, and I've done this for a while now in a number of capacities, at least 8 years, and you know, it's hard. Like, you try to, what you need to do as a data analyst is you have to not only nail your numbers and really know your data inside out. You need to be able to translate your numbers to something that's meaningful to somebody in the business. So all that work that you do, all the hard work, all the data cleaning, all of the number crunching that you do is just the beginning. And that's just what's expected of you. The next level, you know, the level at which you're having a conversation where people can understand without the need to understand all the mechanisms underneath, that's when, you know, that's our KPI, really. So I think it's hard for us to do, it's hard to do data in HR. So what we're here to talk to you today is, you know, just sharing with you tips that we've really applied at our company, and certainly through my experience doing this in the last little while, and hopefully you can apply it, you know, immediately. So here's how we've grouped our content for today. And we went through this, we made a list of all the tips and tricks that we can share, and they just, for some reason, as I look through them, they just kind of fall neatly into these 3 categories. So copyright over that. This is my little model. So we're going to talk to you about tips or ways to engage your audience through your dashboards and through your analytics, enlighten your audience, and enable your audience. So John and I would just be like switching back and forth throughout the presentation. And yeah, so hopefully that won't confuse you too much. And I'll invite John to jump in as well if you've got anecdotes or if you want to jump in. John, feel free. And please feel free to ask us questions throughout the presentation as well.
And we've got a checklist in the back. This isn't going to be anything you haven't seen before. It's not going to be anything new. But hopefully it can be just sort of a baseline when you're about to roll out a dashboard, you're designing a dashboard, something for you to just come back to and say, have I gone through all of these? Have I made sure I've thought about sort of these 3 aspects or these 3 pillars that we have? And so hopefully it's a little bit helpful in the future.
All right, so what do we mean by engage? So I think this is the number one thing, the first thing that we need to kind of nail with our dashboards, and certainly something that I always keep in mind as I create my dashboards. And yes, we do use Tableau, obviously. It's about, like, there's a big emphasis on the visuals or the aesthetic side of the dashboard for me, above and beyond just that is good practice, that is best practice. But I want to create a dashboard that people want to look at. Like, how many times have you seen a dashboard that you have to look at because otherwise you've got no other way to get the information, but you find it really boring and it's not really inspiring, you don't really want to look at it. So I really want to encourage people to just go above and beyond that and create something that's almost, like a work of art, if you could call it that, and make people actually have the desire to look at the dashboard. So luckily for us, though, in HR, we're all super talented, and all our dashboards kind of look like that. So we kind of can just go home now. So this is my favorite dashboard on Tableau Public. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's super intelligent. It's super smart, the way that US map is done. But I think we can all agree, we can dream, but really our dashboards look more like that. Does that look kind of familiar? Very stock standard. And by the way, these are real examples that I'm using here. So prior to John and I coming into ServiceNow, all our dashboards look a little bit like this. It was done for us by the BI team in IT. And having great knowledge in terms of the technical background, they didn't really understand HR metrics, and we kind of revamped all of our dashboards. So take a look at this. This is days to approve requisition, so the number of days it takes for a requisition to be approved. And this is broken down by just the company overall and the different teams in the company. And you can see there that the visualization is showing you using color to show you just the difference between the teams and the company overall. But have a look at the days and the scale. So the overall company scale goes from 0 to about 6, and then if you look at team, the very first team, that 17.5 looks even shorter than 5.7 up there, because there are two different axes being used. And I mean, that's just, for me, that's just like, it's misleading, because what it really should show you straight away is that there's something wrong with team 1. So here's how, oh, I forgot to cover the, my point, make it relevant. So what do I mean by that? When you look at something, a visualization like this, it should make intuitive sense to you. It should be directly relevant to the topic, that the visualization is trying to convey. If it's going to be, if it's going to make you compare the number of days across the various teams in the overall company, it should do just that. It should just show you in a very straightforward manner, which team has the highest number of days that it takes for a requisition to be approved. And color there just adds a little bit of flavor for for the years. And one thing, just for one kind of little something that always bugs me is when I see date being presented vertically. So if you think about it, what makes intuitive sense for us is date is something that is along a dimension. Is along, we'll go from left to right. And it's just, yeah, for me, it's just, always present your timeline in a way that makes logical sense. So straight away, comparison between the two. And yeah. Next example, make it simple. How many times have you seen that? that dashboard, I picked that one because it's one of my favorites. I can't read it. Like, there's something in my brain that refuses to read this dashboard. When I first looked at it, it's just the font, the colored font up there is just driving me insane. I can't read that. And there are just too many colors. And when you get down here at this level, like, what is all that? It really doesn't help anyone. It's trying to do too much. And it's really not doing anything well. And it's just confusing the crap out of you with all the colors and the shadings. And yeah, so it just looks like a mess. So to clean it up, this is an example of how we clean it up. It's exactly the same data visualizations that you saw before. Sorry, the same data, but just cleaned up. So I got rid of lines, unnecessary lines in dashboards, unnecessary gray shadings for the header for the headings. Sometimes you just don't need all those details to tell you, that there are 4 different sections in this dashboard, and I'm looking at them. I'm looking, from left to right, from the table down to the bottom. So, and with colors, one big thing for me about colors is, and no one really says this, but I don't know why no one really says it. Never use colors just for the sake of using colors. Like, if you feel like, oh, I'm just going to chuck some color in just because it looks nice, because it's purple. Never do that. Use color very deliberately and to help you tell the story. So, and consistently as well. So in this instance, instead of the example that you saw before with all the different colors telling you different things from one chart to another, this is one set of colors used to tell you exactly the same story from that big donut chart to the 3 donut charts down the bottom, so that you're looking at the same. When you process that information, red means just one thing consistently, and we can still use a different kind of more neutral kind of color for our regions over there. So this is just an example where you make things simple by just removing all the mess, things that make it hard for your audience to process the information. Okay, make it interesting. So this is key to the point that I made before about engaging. So it's about creating the desire in your audience to actually look at your dashboard. So again, this is an example dashboard that we had before. So just headcount, current year hire, employees less than 2 years tenure at the top. So I learned at the day out in Sydney that those big numbers that you tend to see on dashboards are named big-ass numbers, or BAN, by Tableau. I actually quite like that. So if you've got big-ass numbers, just make them big. Make them count. So yeah, this dashboard is okay, but it's not very inspiring to me. It's all right. It does the job. But we can make it better. So we can tell a story with it. So if we're going to talk about hires, why don't we make them green? Like, really tap into people's pre-existing, understanding of what green is. Green's addition, green's positive. So, and icons, I love using these little icons. They're as sexy as HR data is going to get for me. And one key thing I want to point out is I'm presenting more numbers on this dashboard than you saw before. And we all know in HR, people love seeing numbers. We can't create the kind of visualizations that we've been exposed to at the keynote, or in other parts of Tableau, in other areas of expertise, disciplines. Because our HR audience always wants to see numbers, right? They want to see, they don't just want to see that. They want to see each number being there, and sometimes number and percentage. So, make sure that it's something that's really valuable for your audience to it just really hits the spot for them. And so, just using different visual cues, really tap into people's, just intuitive processing, because it'll really help them like your dashboard and make it really easy for them to understand. So, yeah, John, let's talk about.
So that's engagement. The next E is enlightenment. So engagement, like Nina talked about, is just making the dashboards visually appealing. Want to look at them. Don't have a bunch of gray, a bunch of black, and then call it a day. Enlightenment is actually trying to tell a story. So saying something important, saying something memorable that your audience didn't know before, whether it's an HR business partner, whether it's your CHRO, whether it's getting out to the business and different execs within the organization. Make it something that they can remember, and not just something that you want to look at. So the first piece of this is making it meaningful. What we've got here is, it says net hires, but really what it's trying to be is a headcount walk. So we're looking at basically every quarter going across. You got your hires, your offboards, and then sort of where you end at the end of the year versus the target. And the numbers are correct. I don't really know what the percentages are at the top, but the numbers seem to be correct. But it's not how we really think about a headcount walk, especially from a finance perspective. How we think about it is we start with the starting headcount. You add in your hires. Let's make that green. You take away your attrits. Let's make that red. And then you end at the end of the year, and you can see a gap up to your target. So basically trying to come back, simplify, and make the dashboard meaningful, make your visualizations meaningful to the point where you can see something, and you think about it the exact same way as you're looking at it. So there's no extra processing that your brain or your audience's brain has to do to try and compute how you think about something and how you're actually visualizing it. And then you can see we tried to break up the quarters as well, and just call it what it is, which is a headcount walk. So just trying to simplify and also make that sort of next step of not only simplify, but make it something that's meaningful to the audience. The next piece is to make a point. So I hate average days to fill for requisitions. When it comes to recruiting data, I cannot stand days to fill. It drives me crazy. The first piece about this is just, let's give the example. If you perhaps like days to fill, let me tell you why you shouldn't. From an average perspective, you have a rec that's been open for 500 days. It's evergreen. All of a sudden, you get someone hired on it, and just like that, your quarter's average days to fill jumps by. Your average jumps by 4, 5, 6 days, just because you had one rec close in that specific cohort. The other piece about this is there's really no need to have quarter going vertically. Quarter can go horizontally, like Nina mentioned. Everything you start in 5th grade physics is distance versus time, and time is on the bottom. So let's throw it on the x-axis. And the other piece here is when you're making a point, a lot of times, and I know some of this is out of your control, is we're looking at legacy metrics in HR. We're looking at metrics that an CHRO, 3 CHROs ago decided they thought was important, and that's what we're still looking at. So in some cases, it's honestly best just to scrap the metric and create a new one. So in this one, we changed from looking at average days to fill to let's bucket out what the days to fill are and show it in different cohorts. So the key metric we're trying to look at here, and this could be 60, 50, whatever you want, but the key metric here is jobs filled within 30 days. So what % of our jobs filled this quarter filled within 30 days? How many filled within 30 to 60, 60 to 90, 90 plus, et cetera. But really focusing in on changing the metric into just what is the key thing we're trying to look at. Maybe it's the median, maybe it's the 75th percentile, maybe it's the 25th percentile. Whatever it is, that's better than average days to fill per quarter. And you can still get the regional view of that as well. So that's just trying to make a point. So make it not only interesting, make it meaningful, but make a point with it as well if the wrong point, or maybe not as good of a point as being made previously. And then here we've got make it explicit. So a lot of this, honestly, is cover your ass. But Tableau is great because we can get the tooltips here. If we show this dashboard, manager profiles, we've got total managers, managers with one direct report, managers that happen to report to the same job level. Not sure why that would be the case, but it happens. And the first question that we always get whenever we share anything like this, and I'm sure you get the same question, is how are you defining manager? Is it an M-level employee? Is it someone with a direct report? Is it someone who's a manager and has a direct report? Can an IC be a manager, et cetera? So the easiest thing to do is just throw in the tooltips. In PowerPoint, I tend to go crazy with the little subtitles at the bottom of the slide, the footnotes. And so the tooltips are a great way to get away from using footnotes that just look bad on your graph. And then the other piece that we really like to do is, while we have these tooltips for sort of when you can hover over the little data points, the other nice thing we like to do is for your more curious HRBPs is throwing in a definitions tab. So for each dashboard, having not only the main dashboard where you've got your key metrics, but then throwing in definitions tab. So if someone is actually curious about what's going into the metric, you just put all the information there. How we're defining job level, how we're defining manager, what goes into our attrition calculation. Are we averaging sort of the ending monthly headcount? Is it ending daily headcount, ending quarterly headcount? Whatever it is, if they're interested, they can go there. It's in there. And you've made it very explicit. You've defined exactly what we're doing, but it's not taking up room on this front main piece where you're trying to have the focus be the actual data itself and not just how we're defining everything. So that's Enlightenment. We've got Engage. Make it look good, enlighten, make it actually mean something. And then the last piece is Enable. And why this one? Let me just tell a quick story from my old company. So I was on a team of analysts at my old company, and the IT department sent out this email update. It was the first email update they'd sent out to the whole company. Not sure why they sent it to the whole company, but they did. And it was amazing. It had really cool graphics, very intuitive charts. It made a point. It got the point across. You wanted to look at it. It was stylish. It was like 3 scrolls long, if you're counting emails that way. And our whole analyst team, we got really hyped about it. We're like, guys, look at this IT report that just got sent out. And so we were all gathered around, we were looking at it. But then, 3-4 weeks later, after they'd sent out 1 or 2 more, we just marked as read, threw in the trash, because they didn't have anything. They had no TLDR. They had TLDR, too long, didn't read, yeah, okay. They had no bullet point at the top saying what to actually take away. If you wanted to get a key takeaway from it, you had to go down and look at every single graph, which were great, but there were like 5 of them, and it was the middle of the day when you get the email. So what we really want to do is enable. And enablement can be bringing the data to the surface, making it very easy to access what the underlying data is, or it can just be summarizing your data very cleanly in a way that whoever it is you're presenting to, HRBP, again, CHRO, whoever it is, can take that away and actually do something about it. So this is enabling action coming out of a dashboard, coming out of the data, which, at the end of the day, we can look at our own data and get really hyped about it, but if someone else who doesn't own the data or own the analysis looks at it and doesn't get excited about it, they're probably not going to do anything about it, and that's what the end goal is. So how do we figure out how to enable, create self-guided learning for sort of those that are reviewing the dashboards that are a little bit more curious and are willing to go that extra length? How can we do that for them? So the first piece is just making it easy. Again, this is, so we got here like a job level dashboard. This is one of the real ones, again, sample data. But the first thing, you've got over here that little manager piece we showed earlier. Managers with 1 direct report. In Q3, we had 59 managers with 1 direct report. If an HRBP is filtering this and they're looking at it, everyone knows what the first question is going to be. It's, well, who are those 59 managers with 1 direct report? And the easiest thing to do is just, when they click, throw in the information down here at the bottom. And we didn't want to mask, 15 lines of data, but you get the point.
So we got a little bit lazy there, but it really shows you everyone's name, their job title, like their manager, so it's real confidential information for us. So instead of recreating an entire dashboard, we just thought we'd convince you with the must. So. Yeah,
you get the point. But that enables just the data to be at the fingertips. So I mean, that's honestly, that kind of data pull is what drives me up the wall of, yeah, I can pull it for you. but it's going to take 15 minutes, and I'm going to turn off my brain while I'm doing it, and I can't be working on something else. So this just gives the information directly to whoever's in the dashboard, and it's easy.
And they can obviously click to download the cross-tab and get it in Excel, which they love. So that makes them happy.
The next piece is making the data accessible. So when it comes to enablement, like we said, what we want to do is be able to make a decision coming out of just viewing and comprehending and understanding a graph. So let's get back to some of the examples. This is one of the old ones. Again, a real graph. It's correct, and it shows growth over time. There's headcount growth for the organization. Looks like most of the functions are probably growing. But aside from just, we grew a lot since 2011, there's not much there. What is there, and what would enable us to be able to make a takeaway from this is, having the percentages here. Because if I asked you to show me the difference between function 1 and function 4 and sort of how they're broken down in 2011 versus 2018, you have to hover over it, get the numbers, do the calculation yourself. With this graph here, it's slightly more complicated, but it gets a lot more information across. So you can actually see the percentages over time. We can see that function 3 is decreasing in the percent of the population over the last 9 years, and function 4 is increasing. So that actually enables something. If this is sales support and sales, maybe we need to start increasing the sales support organization to make sure they can keep up, or maybe it shows that there have been gains in efficiency that's been made that's helping the sales support team support more salespeople. And then the sort of key takeaway from here, which was this entire graph of the organization has grown, you can just throw in a secondary axis, and we see that there as well. So this is just trying to make the data more accessible. We really want to get to the point where we're getting away from these, which were actual emails that we would send out every single Monday. Still do. All in Excel, to a point where we can move towards this here. And actually heighten that level of curiosity and try and bring a little bit of inspiration and get those questions that are not just, can you show me the 9 managers that are listed in this group, but why do we think attrition is spiking right after 4 years of tenure compared to the previous 6 months? It's vesting. And that's sort of that enablement piece of let's engage, let's make people want to look at the dashboards, let's make it interesting and make a point, make it memorable, and actually have something that's valuable. And then also let's be able to take that valuable information in a way that enables leaders and those who are making the decisions to actually move forward and do something about it.
All right, so really that's the gist of what we wanted to share with you today. So I'll close, and then John can show you if we really do walk the talk at ServiceNow, so what we've got at ServiceNow. So really, we just want to convey to you today that, it's in HR, doing data in HR is hard, but it's really worth the effort that you put in, every little bit of effort that you put in. And, the point for us from taking people from Excel, just crunching numbers in Excel, to Tableau Dashboards and interact with the data on a daily basis and actually have the desire to, is that, it will create a HR function that's actually, very, very savvy in data. And this is how we increase the level of data literacy in our function. It's a bigger goal that we really want to, we're going for here. So it's about, building the dream, really. For me, it certainly is, and this is why I'm passionate about what I do. It's just, it's something that, once you've enabled people to ask the bigger questions, then it really gets them thinking about other bigger questions, and really, hit the strategic side of your business when it comes to people. So, in summary, so just make it a pleasurable experience. We've said this many times throughout the presentation. I'm sure you're sick to death of hearing about it. But yeah, make it easy for your audience. Really, you do the hard work so that they don't have to. And by doing so, I think we all really win. And for me, so this quote here is from the manager of Team Sky, which is a cycling team. So I'm not sure if any of you is a cycling fan. I only do cycling as a hobby, only a little bit. So Team Sky is basically the team that, from which the winner of Tour de France has come from in the last 4 years. So you've got Chris Froome winning in 2013, and then 15 through to 17, and then this year it's the winners up there, Geraint Thomas. And so a highly successful cycling team, and the philosophy or the principle that they adopt is what they call marginal gains. And it's about going for every little bit of improvement that you can think of, and they will do it. So an example is, they would bring along the pillows for their players from home and when they go on tour. Just because if you get a minute better sleep that day, it's, increases your performance by 0.000 whatever percent. But it adds up. The point is, it adds up. So every little thing that you do, every bit of consideration you put to your color, to your placing, your spacing of your dashboards, it really helps your audience process the information better and make better decisions as a result. So I'm a strong believer in marginal gains. Team Sky, a little bit controversial, but yeah, so hopefully you agree.
So then, yeah, jumping into some real life examples at ServiceNow. This is our portal right now for our people metrics. We tried to design something that was intuitive for HRBPs to be able to go into. And you can see the little
This is a Tableau dashboard, by the way.
Yeah, it's a Tableau dashboard. The little dots at the bottom correspond directly to the access to these dashboards. So we've got our sort of at a glance, broad overview data dashboard. We've got our terminations, staffing, diversity, job and career, sort of organization, engagement, compensation, and basically you can see how we've outlined sort of which groups have access to which one throughout that. We're in the process of sort of building all of these out. We've got a lot of them built now, but we're still working on it. And a couple of these, so if you look, again, sample data, not real data. Workforce diversity, gender diversity, and race and ethnicity, which obviously is in the US only. We break that down. And then along the right-hand side, you can see the view by piece up there in the upper right. That changes sort of how we're looking at it, whether it's a trend, whether it's by country, by location, by management organization, what have you.
So this is what you see when you click on the diversity icon
Yep.
in our previous, like our landing page. So those icons are all linked
Yep.
to separate Tableau dashboards, and yeah, this is one.
Yeah. Promotions, so similarly, if you go back to the, I think, job and career, it'll show you, you click on there, it go to promotions, and you can see sort of our key takeaways up at the top, as well as be able to break down the different cuts for promotions in 2018 versus 2017, just the numbers there. You can obviously click into those and get the actual information beneath that. But just a quick, easy way to be able to go in, look at sort of those top-line metrics across the organization and get down into them. Organization shape, obviously something we care a lot about in trying to design an organization. We're sort of in the middle of hyper-growth right now. I think we've grown about 2,000 people in the last year or so, up from about 5,000, 1,500 up to about 7,500 now. And we're trying to figure out sort of, are we over-indexing on ICs, on managers, where in the management chain do we have the most people? Are we keeping our sort of VP plus population at a reasonable proportion to the rest of the organization? So this allows us to let the HRBPs go in, filter for their different organization over in the right-hand columns, pull it out, save the filter view so they can come back to it really easily as the data update on a monthly basis. And then for compensation, just looking at new hire compensation. So instead of a box and whisker plot, which I know a lot of comp data is shown as, this one, the little icons, and obviously Nina loves icons, you can actually hover over them, so you can see that person right there at the 50th percentile. You can hover over them, sort of see their level, their base pay position, the employee, where they're at for their position and range. And it's also a really nice, easy, visual way to understand, do we have a lot of people grouped in quartile 2 versus quartile 3 in terms of what the range is for the specific role they're in throughout the compensation grade. This could be job level, could be whatever you want in. So it's a nice visual way just to be able to go in and say, okay, how's the organization look? Are we bringing in a bunch of people in the lower range? or we bring them really high where there's no room to grow in the current range until, it gets to the point where we either have to promote them or they're probably going to leave. And then, the last thing is the appendix here. So we told you we'd give you some basic design principles to go back, take a screenshot, take a photo, print it out, whatever you want. Don't use
Basically
it. We don't
care. A summary of what we walked you through today.
Yeah, just a checkbox, check mark sheet to go back and as a gut check as you go back through your dashboards as you're creating them.
I think that's it. That's us. That's a wrap.
We got time for questions.
Yeah, questions from anyone?
Yes, good. Just yell.
First of all, I appreciate the cute sky analogy. Juicing up your dashboard. The question is twofold. Do you document or do you recommend documenting the headers, the fonts, the style that you're using? And the second question is, what's your experience with the filters? You seem to have a lot of filters. Is that a hindrance? Is that what the ask was?
So the question was, do we document the style and the fonts for our dashboards? And then we have a lot of filters. Is that a hindrance? For the first piece, we've got brand guidelines at the company, so we just sort of go off of those. And then we try to make sure our dashboards are aligned with the visuals.
Yep, definitely. The second piece, it's definitely an ask. And I'm not sure if you guys have the same, I would guess that you would, but in HR, you have a lot of stakeholders in HR. So you've got your HR generalist folks who are interested in their kind of population, and then you've got the comp folks who might be using the same dashboard, who might be wanting to understand comparing between levels. And so it's really trying to make it relevant for a broad audience. And yeah, that is the ask for us. So and we find that just having it there is so much, just saves us the time and effort from answering further questions than not having them all there.
Yeah, and it also allows us to, when you're working with HRBPs, a lot of the times if they're not super gung-ho about data, you can go in with them, teach them how to filter and then save the view, and then come back to that, and that saves a whole lot of trouble instead of having to sort of build out those personalized views. Yeah. Yeah.
Great question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so security is a big thing for us. So, so for us, it's kind of inherent in the data infrastructure that we've got. So we've got data coming from Workday and JobVite, which is our hiring tool that we use. They're our two main sources of data for HR. We actually would feed that through an intermediate kind of database, and that is SAP HANA. And the whole security structure is set up there. Yeah, so security roles are set up there, and yeah.
Yeah,
so
and then we just have to be careful too. I think for a lot of these dashboards, the end user can't actually download the raw data behind it just because there's so much. But if we do ever display that, we just be very careful with which columns we're showing and which ones we're exposing. And there's only a couple BI resources that can see the sensitive data that we have in SAP HANA.
I think Tableau folks, I think copies are made available. Yeah, that's
Sure.
what I believe. That's what I was told in one of the other sessions. So.
You can also email us after the fact
Yeah,
if
that's
you want.
true.
Actually, yeah, right there.
There you go.
Yeah.
I have a technical question. Drill down, you have the mask at the bottom, you put 59. Naturally, doesn't dashboard action until they choose on, doesn't pass a column down to the worksheet? Doesn't technique you use to do that?
So so that bit, that details bit that you see at the bottom, that's actually a view in itself. So it's a table that we set up and then you can kind of, it's a bit of a, I'd say it's almost a hack. So you can get that table to show only when a Tableau action, like the dashboard action is triggered, only when you click that it's shown. If it's not clicked on, it's just not shown.
My
So.
question is between the 51, 55, 59, how do you tell it which column it should show?
So let's go back to that, yeah.
Second question. You can't pass the actual column.
This one there. You're asking how'd you get to
So when you say column?
Just the 59.
59, not 55, or...
Oh, so that basically tells Tableau to filter by 2018 Q3, manager with one direct report. So anyone who's got a tag, and we've created that data field in our data set. Anyone who's a manager with one direct report, like let's say they're a value of 1, then yeah, we're just filtering on that column for all the 1s and 2018 Q3.
So are you using action button for that?
Yeah, that's an action. It's a dashboard action. Yeah. Sorry.
So it is a row. The dates are all the dates are on a column, but you can select the different rows. You just filter on the rows because you have all the census files on top of each other.
Yeah, I'd love to have a chat about that.
I don't get into the weeds.
That's okay.
Just one quick thing, because you have on your main dashboard different levels of access. Are you using like a Tableau Online where you have one account for each level of access, or does everyone manage each person access?
Yeah, so great question. So that is still, to be very honest, that's still work in progress for us. So we're slowly getting there. So it's not completely set up for us yet. So half of it, or actually most of that sort of access level tiering is done in SAP HANA for us. So that's our intermediate database that then feeds through to Tableau. So if your access is granted at the SAP HANA level, then that drives whatever you see in Tableau. And so I think we've got an additional layer in Tableau as well. And I think that's the bit that's work in progress for us. Yeah, so.
So from this portal, what does your pass-through look like? So these are different categories of reports, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then assuming they're dynamic and click on each
You click on them,
buttons,
yeah.
what's your splash page look like from here?
It just takes you directly through to, if you clicked on diversity, you'll see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a portfolio dashboard.
No.
Yeah.
Easier.
And it does open up a new tab. So you
Yeah.
have a million tabs if you keep clicking on them. Yeah.
We were looking at some of the old dashboards that we had, and the landing tab had about 50% more views. So if you just make everything the landing tab.
Yeah, that's true. I hate that. Yes?
What are your metrics of the data for engagement?
Engagement.
Yeah.
So those are our survey scores. Like, yeah, employee voice survey. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's mainly what we've got right now.
That main access page, is that a Tableau dashboard in itself, or is that
Yep. This is
Sorry,
this is a Tableau dashboard.
Oh, yeah, it is a Tableau dashboard, yep. Yeah. Oh, those buttons are not real. They're just our little tricks. So no, these are so you can create, and John's right, I do love icons. So I actually would search for the icons, and that's just Googling, and then I would create these from scratch and save them as like PNG or JPEG file, and then you just insert them into your dashboard as an image, floating image, and then you can position them, and then you can just put a URL link, which is your dashboard link, and that's it. And yeah, those little dots are my little circles, like that I inserted in myself. It's just appearing clever.
Yeah.
So is this jumping sheets in a dashboard, or is this jumping like dashboard A and a dashboard B? Like completely different URL links?
Yeah.
So it's just swapping the dashboard sheets?
That's the bit that is, we'd love to get a solution for that, but I think it's something that, it's from the Tableau end. So yeah, it's really, it's not smart enough to know that you're using this as like a menu, and you click on it, it'll drive you back. It's not like that. It'll just take you to the link, and it'll just open up a new tab if you click on it again.
Yeah. And then on each, we don't have it shown here, but on each of these dashboards up here, there's a button that says go back to the main menu.
Yeah. Any
All
other
right.
questions? No?
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you
We
so
really
much.
Appreciate it.